Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're going to change gears radically here. We're going to go from talking about justifiable homicide, as this lady called abortions. I think we've got a lot of callers who are going to hold on the line to talk to us about this after we talk to Bill Still. But he's been very patiently waiting to talk to us about his film about the Federal Reserve. This is the 100th anniversary of the thing we call the Federal Reserve. And he has a wonderful documentary about that we sell at InfoWarsStore.com. It's Jekyll Island. And I've seen this documentary. I'm very anxious to talk to Bill about what he thinks the future holds and if there's any way to rein in the Federal Reserve. But we're going to talk about the effects that it's had and the history of the Federal Reserve. Bill Still has many films that you may have seen. He has The Secret of Oz. He is a former newspaper editor and publisher. He's written for USA Today, the Saturday Evening Post, LA Times, and Omni Magazine. Bill, are you there? Hello? We got Bill on the line? Hey.
I can hear you.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I just saw your film, Jekyll Island, and it's really timely with the 100th anniversary of the Federal Reserve. I think it's really an amazing story that people need to see. They need to understand the history of how we got this. They need to understand the implications of this. As you pointed out, there's a couple of things that have really ruined country after country throughout history. That's a fractional reserve lending system and the debt that they impose on sovereign nations.
Yeah, really, the two major problems with the world economy and the economy of every nation are, number one, government borrowing, and number two, fractional reserve lending. They are two distinct forces, but the first problem that I would try to go fix is we don't need to just pay down the national debt. We need to eliminate the ability of the federal government to borrow, because the borrower, as the Bible says in Proverbs, the borrower becomes servant to the lender. And so therefore you have, instead of a republic or a democratic republic or a constitutional republic, you have nothing but a plutocracy that is ruled by the banking class. And this is what humanity has tried to escape for the last 2,000 years. And we're rapidly devolving now, back in the last 50 years, towards less freedom, towards more centralized control. And I'm not just talking about centralized control of government. I'm talking about centralized control by the debt-based banking system.
That's right.
And the reason most of us think that government is no longer responsive to we the people is because they are now completely responsive and subservient to those to whom they owe this debt, namely the largest commercial banks.
It's amazing in your film, Jekyll Island, you go back in quite a ways into history, especially back to the Napoleonic times, the Louisiana Purchase, and how the Rothschild family got in control of major countries in Europe. But then you take it forward to when the Federal Reserve was created. It's kind of interesting, this secret train ride on Senator Aldrich's private Pullman car that's black. I like the way the documentary starts out with that. This is something that was set up to stop the rapid, what they call the business cycle, the boom and bust cycles. And yet the Federal Reserve hasn't really worked out too well in terms of that, has it?
No, it hasn't. And in fact, just 16 years after the creation of the Federal Reserve, what did we have? We had the largest crash in U.S. history, leading to the deepest depression of the 20th century.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at InfoWars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at InfoWars.com/show.
And we've got on the phone with us documentary filmmaker Bill Still, who just completed the documentary film Jekyll Island. And Jekyll Island tells the story of the Federal Reserve and really kind of underscores the fact that the Federal Reserve is not federal and they don't really have any reserves. And it's something that was created to solve the problem of the business cycle, but it actually has made it quite bad, as Bill was just saying before we went to break. Bill, as they came in and set up the Federal Reserve, it was only just a few years after that we had the Great Depression, one of the largest depression, of course, the worst economic situation the world has seen worldwide.
Well, yeah, worldwide, but that was not the deepest depression in U.S. history. The years after the Civil War were actually the deepest depression if you look at it from a percentage of money disappearing from the U.S. economy. I think it was 84%. The money in the system was reduced by 84% during those 30 years. And this led up to the bankers caused a series of booms and busts to try to justify bringing a massive centralized system, the Federal Reserve System, and that's really how we got it. And as I was getting ready to say before the break, there's a rumor going around that the Fed has a 100-year charter, and that's going to come up here on December 23rd. That's just not the case.
Right.
Initially, it was given only a 20-year charter, and there's a reason in corporate rulemaking, because the Fed is a corporation. They did admit that when they changed the law in 1927. There's some rule in corporate America that you don't want a corporation to last over 20 years. So they gave the Fed a 20-year charter, and then after only 13 years, they decided, well, we're going to jump in there and change it and make it indeterminate, as the law states. So in 1927, that was changed, and the Fed now has a perpetual charter.
So how do we get rid of the Fed?
Well, it's going to take tremendous public awareness, and I personally don't think it's going to happen until a lot more pain has been applied to the U.S. economy. Right now, we're in the mother of all bubbles with the stock market, and at some point, that's got to collapse. You just can't continue to expand the money supply logarithmically, and yet even now, we see unemployment rates and money going to the middle class. The middle class economic experience is no better than flat, despite the fact that the Fed is pumping an unlimited, and not an unlimited, but an unprecedented amount of money into the system, over $1 trillion a year. This has never happened before in U.S. history, and still, it's for the middle class. There's really no change. In fact, our purchasing power is continuing to go down. All this money is being concentrated to an ever greater degree in the hands of the banking class, and there's just no way around that. That is not going to turn around. It's going to do nothing but not only increase but accelerate the rate of increase until the system collapses. And at that point, then we can finally have an opportunity for real change, because people will see that the solutions that have been offered in the past were lies, just as Mr. Obama's health care bill. So that's the problem. We're going to have some more pain.
And we've seen this in the past. We've seen the World Bank under Robert McNamara going in and getting third world nations totally inundated with national debt. And he was criticized, the World Bank was criticized for what they called rent-seeking status. In other words, getting these countries so far in debt that they could never get out of it. And that's what we see happening throughout history, as your documentary points out. The banks will get countries so far into debt that they can never get out. And that's why they talk about turning everybody into renters. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Bill, and I really appreciate that. That documentary is Jekyll Island, and as we approach the 100th anniversary of the Federal Reserve, find out about its true history. Find out that it's not really federal and there's no reserve. It's a private bank that is destroying our country financially.
Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at INFOWARS.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at INFOWARS.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com.